Hey everyone, I'm Rafi Salem with F1 IT, Dental Technology Advisors, with my colleague and the president of F1 IT, William Kohl. William, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Pretty good. It's a little cold out today, but
And we're back with Rob Malandruccolo. Did I pronounce it right this time?
That was solid. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Rob, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing good. I mean, it's a Monday. Things can't get any better, right?
Yes, but it's the Monday after Super Bowl, so let's just jump right into it. Did your teams win? Did you watch the game?
funny you say your teams because at least personally, I was the least emotionally invested in the Super Bowl rather than any of the other ones in the past. But it was a great game to watch.
Yeah, that was definitely an exciting game. Neither of the teams I support were not in it, but I did enjoy the game, and I love the halftime celebration because that's kind of like the music I grew up with. So it was nostalgic from that standpoint. But I wasn't deeply invested into the Super Bowl like I normally, would be if a team was playing that I loved.
Right. So for me, as the marketing guy, I'm all about the commercials. So what did you think of the commercials? Were they funny? Did they touch your heart?
I thought they were cool. I did take a lot of snack breaks though. So.
Yeah, there was a couple great commercials. I definitely like the one with, I think it was it Seth Rogen and the gentleman from Paul Rudd. They did a great commercial spoofing like old movies and his marriage but it was, the commercials are great. I mean, that's part of the whole, environment, right? Is seeing what's coming out, and there's a lot of interesting technology. I feel like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies dominated, right? They were oh my God, that they know it's a huge audience, probably the biggest viewership, right? So those companies are going to push hard to get their products across. It was interesting.
Yeah. So let's jump right into it. Last we spoke was right after the Greater New York Dental meeting. I think the dental meeting was Thanksgiving, end of November, so we spoke in December. And we spoke about the do's and don'ts. Well, we spoke about starting and growing a dental practice in 2022. And we spoke about some do's and don'ts. And I'm just curious, have you seen a dramatic change from last year to first quarter this year? Rob, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a nice trend that's taking place. And, I think maybe I've touched on it in a previous video, but it's occurring a little bit more frequent. So it's worth absolutely mentioning. So what I'm seeing more and with young doctors starting offices is their desire to buy real estate with their practices, whether it's their first practice as an acquisition or it's a startup practice, a practice from scratch. And we're seeing that more in the suburbs of New York. And I believe the reason behind it and the trend is because there's more spaces available. There's more opportunities for young doctors to now own commercial real estate, which has great benefits, not only from a tax perspective, but also about controlling your own destiny. Like one of the things that we talk about, one of the obstacles we have as when we're pursuing practice ownership is landlords, dealing with landlords. They could be some of the most challenging people, or they could be great, but more likely challenging for the most part, because everyone wants to make sure they're getting the right value. And it's a strange real estate market. So that's one of the more challenging times for doctors when they're pursuing ownership or acquisition, is dealing with landlords, understanding and getting good lease terms, because they are generally in spaces for 10, 20 years. So the trend that I've seen since the New York meeting took place is we have a lot more doctors that are pursuing real estate ownership right from the get-go. And, that comes with pros and cons. And I'll kind of go into some of that. But the thought is, when you could own real estate and that houses your business, you're in a better place long term for your future. You don't have to deal with escalations of leases. You don't have to deal with options of leases, whether to execute them or not down the road. Also, you get a significant amount of tax benefits. You know, when doctors are established, and when I say established, when a doctor owns an office, already has a business, and they are the primary leaseholders or own the real estate, banks like ours, healthcare lenders, will potentially lend them 100% financing for future real estate investments, as long as they're occupying 51% of the space, and the space is commercial, right? It has to be commercial and used for healthcare. So if you're an established doctor, you have an option for 100% financing. A first-time practice owner, you have options. It's generally around 85 to 90% financing. So these doctors, these young doctors that are pursuing real estate, are coming to us with really strong financials. Like, they have liquidity, money to inject into those deals. That's what kind of separates a first-time practice owner and an established doctor oftentimes, is the ability to have money to put into the injection of the real estate. So, but the good thing is there is options for young doctors to acquire real estate in their first office. What happens is a bank will ask, obviously, for an injection, whether it be 15%, or sometimes 20, or 10 in certain cases, into these transactions. But with that injection, the bank is giving them real estate on terms that are fixed, and they amortize sometimes over 25 years. So the doctor has the ability to manage that with the growth of their office. And sometimes if a doctor pursues practice ownership, that's an existing practice, you already have existing income that supports the mortgage. Sometimes you're able to assume a larger percentage of the financing on real estate. But definitely a trend right now is, if you're in the suburbs of New York, you are opening that door to owning real estate for your first office. Banks will look at that, whether you're leasing or owning, it's still an overhead cost. So a bank won't look at that unfavorable. We just don't want a doctor to liquidate all they have in savings to be able to make the investment. There is a strong importance and a strong precedent put on having liquidity, to protect yourself and your family, from some unforeseeable need for money, right? So we can't have a doctor come to us and liquidate their bank accounts to buy real estate. We need them to be able to potentially invest, right? But also have money for a rainy day. So
Will, since the show back in November, and since we spoke last in December, right, are you seeing the same thing that Rob is seeing from a tech perspective with your clientele and your customers?
Well, I mean, I've seen a lot of changes with the concern over compliance and stability, safety. It's not enough to just be supported anymore. With the pandemic and everything, it kind of shone a spotlight on technology and the necessity for it. And just the same, so have audits, compliance audits from the regulatory commissions. They all have been making it a point to kind of go after smaller practices rather than just the big fish. And we wanted to also shine our own spotlight on that to protect our customers. So we've been dealing with a lot more compliance related security things that we've been implementing, because really compliance comes from three things. It's people, right? You have to make sure that your people know what it means to be compliant. There has to be trainings in place, and with that, policy, right? The documentation. And that's a lot of times that's not typically something that we would be touching, but we've recently built this infrastructure, a portal with dashboard to pull all this stuff together. So you have your trainings, you're able to track your employees and their completions and the recurring nature of that. Keep all your policy documents, your permits, your what happens if there's a needle prick in the office? What do? You have to notify this. It's an incident report. And, as far as when the audit comes around, they're going to see that you've made an absolute best effort to become compliant. That's really what the those commissions want to see. And of course, like always, we're handling the technology end of things. So, keeping you safe from malware, and even if it does get you, making sure you get the right backups and everything. So, that's business as usual. That's IT and
Yeah.
dental technology.
So I'm curious about the overlap though between let's say the banking industry and the tech industry. What's the priority order? Is it a dentist that you're talking about, Rob? Is it a dentist out of dental school, or has this dentist been working under someone else's in someone else's office, and then they decide to open up a business for themselves? And then when does the technology get it? So what comes first, the chicken or the egg, or the financing and the technology or the space?
I think everything comes from financing for sure.
It does, but what's funny? Like, I feel like young doctors, if we talk about young doctors, they get exposed to a lot more technology in the dental programs, the dental schools, and in residency, a lot more today. And New York being a state where, it's required to have a GPR, you have to have a residency of at least a year. The exposure to technology is at a very early, point, and the understanding of technology and what they like is done, extremely early in this marketplace because they get exposure at a faster rate. But generally, what we see, young doctors, they work for people, usually on average, at least a specialist will work for someone for at least a year. And a GP, a general dentist, will also spend at least a year to 3 years working. But that's usually when they get that itch about pursuing it. And then, that's when I generally see them attending our lectures or just reaching out if we've been in contact, just to explore the process. But one of the first conversations we have is, understand what you want in your practice today and understand the technologies that have better returns on investment. And, to William's point, like, compliance should probably be a conversation as soon as they find a space, right? Because you want to make sure that
Get-go.
Yeah, the systems are in place and you're protecting yourself, your staff, and you're protecting the practice, the business, the future business. So that is definitely an important piece of it.
Yeah. Will, are you seeing that in your clientele? Are you seeing more of a younger population that's building out new offices, or is it more established practices?
I think regardless, there's a shift towards the importance of technology. Even working, in an existing practice as an associate or otherwise, there's value in that too, because potentially you can even see what isn't working, right? There's an established infrastructure there, whether they're using paper charts or film-based x-rays or something like that, and you're coming out of school having been exposed to the technology, knowing what is out there and what should be done. You can see the differences, what is and what isn't working. And then of course when you go to talk to Rob about that, you can have plans for implementing all the things that you want, knowing what will work.
So Rob, we're midway through first quarter 2022. We still have a global pandemic on our hands. Are you seeing anything? I'm really curious. Anything that you were thinking, your organization were thinking last year versus this year? Have you seen any changes? And can you make any predictions for the rest of 2022 based on what you're seeing right now?
Yeah, I mean, the hope is things are starting to, we see it, they're starting to build momentum and speed in terms of opportunities in the marketplace. And we are definitely seeing, more doctors gravitate towards practice ownership. There's definitely an uptick in, the pursuit of practice ownership. in the last, I would say, month. Our environment is cyclical, but one thing is definitely true is if you pursued advanced education, usually there is a thought in your mind that eventually you will have practice ownership. What we're definitely seeing is, I think we're seeing more young doctors understand the importance of being able to take control of their career and future. And, I've even seen a lot of our clients are coming out of the DSO markets. They're ready to do their own thing. They feel like they have the skills. And a lot of times those are good training grounds to become a better dentist and develop hand skills. So, I feel like the opportunities are endless. You just have to figure out which path takes you to where you want to get, whether it's acquiring with real estate, starting up with real estate, or even buying in, right? Buying in, we don't always talk about, but that is definitely a more common occurrence these days. People like the work-life balance of someone handling 50% of the business, right? Oftentimes, right? So, but we're seeing an uptick in opportunities, which it should be, right? Because if you go through the schooling that doctors go through, you should try to take advantage of the ability to own your own practice. That's one thing, like, I always try to push onto doctors a little bit, is understand, like, there's a DSO market for a reason. You're in an incredible business and they figured it out. All these private equity groups and money, hedge funds figured it out. Like, hey, this is a great industry to be in. We're going to try to buy up this industry. You should, as a young doctor considering it could be scary, but the truth of the matter is, it's a great opportunity for you. You just have to take that step forward,
So, Will, one takeaway as we wrap things up, one takeaway for people, for practices, now mid first quarter 2022, you mentioned compliance before. What is the one thing that people watching this video should take away from our conversation?
I think from a general sense, planning, more especially planning for the unexpected. I mean, that can come from the financial space. We had a pandemic where, oh my gosh, like what do I do about my business? My business, I can't see patients right now. I can't, operate as normal. Where's my income going to come from? But also planning as far as, things do happen. And, we've been exposed to that now. Even from a compliance perspective, you can get an audit. There are audits actually happening now. And your data being safe, just all around, planning is really the best thing you can do for yourself and your practice.
Great. And Rob, your one takeaway for people watching today?
I think Will hit it on the nail on the head, because just educate yourself, right? Understand your options and then plan for that goal, whatever that may be, right? So the more connected you are, the more networking you do, probably the better you are long term with making good decisions, right? Because education is everything.
Great. And Rob, any webinars coming up? Any shows, trade shows, any events coming up that our viewers should be aware of?
We are definitely doing a ton of new dentist events in the second half of this year. Nothing has been confirmed. We actually have 10 events that we're working on throughout New York. So I will definitely get our viewers that information if they would like to attend.
We'll put those links in the bottom. And Will, we have a trade show coming up.
Yeah, I think Bank of America might be there also. The Greater Long Island Dental Meeting in
Yes.
Melville, I believe, Long Island. Yeah, we're going to be there, and
Very good.
we'll be exhibiting really close to Bank of America, actually.
Do you know the date of that, or somewhere around there?
April 2nd and 3rd. I have to.
No, it's April 12th and 13th.
Oh, there we go. I got the 2 and the 3 right.
Tuesday and Wednesday. So.
Good.
Gotcha.
All right, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm Rafi Salem for F1 IP, Dental Technology Advisors, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.